Hello and welcome to the THIS podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today in Pod 8 I'll be looking at a result over Middlesbrough by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you a collection of exclusive interviews with Alan Pardew, Wilfried Zaha, Christian Benteke and James McArthur after the game. So let's begin. Palace claimed the first win of the 2016-17 season as the first Eagles goal from Christian Benteke and a second-half strike by Wilfried Zaha saw them beat Middlesbrough at the Riverside Stadium. The Belgian hotstop got off the mark for the club early in the game as he nodded in from a Zaha cross, but Alan Pardew's side were pegged back when Daniel Arla headed in from a corner on 37 minutes. However, in just the second minute of the second half, Zaha sneaked in to fire past Victor Valdez and Palace defended resiliently for the rest of the encounter to claim the 3 points. The game began quietly with the visitors shading the better of the possession, but their only opportunity in open phases came when Scott Dan screwed a header well wide, which was followed by a wild blast by Alvaro Negredo and Adam Clayton, both never in danger of troubling Steve Mondonda. But on 13 minutes the Eagles' record signing found the breakthrough. A sloppy pass handed Palace a throwing on the right, and Joe Ward gave it to Zaha, who had all the time in the world to clip the ball into the box where Benteke outjumped Ayala to guide it past Valdez and score his first goal for the Eagles. 10 minutes later, a flowing Eagles attack nearly saw them go 2 goals ahead. Zaha picked the ball on the halfway line and drove towards the area, and after slipping past George Friend, he once again found Benteke, who this time held the ball up well and laid it off to Andros Townsend to have a crack, but Valdez managed to push it just past his post. However, with 7 minutes of the half to go, despite looking unlikely to do so, the Premier League new boys found a way to get level. After winning a corner on the left, Stuart Downing whipped it in towards the back post, while Ayala was well placed to get his head onto the cross, and despite Mondonda getting a hand on it, it wasn't enough to prevent the ball nesting inside of the side netting and restoring the parity. And in first half stoppage time, the hosts would have taken the lead when a counter-attack saw Christian Sudu slip in Negredo, who raced towards the goal, but made the angle tight for himself as he drove forward and tried to thrash the ball past Mondonda, but the Eagles keeper stayed big and deflected it away to ensure the sides weren't trailing at the break. But 90 seconds after the restart, Pardew's side were back in front. A clever pass by James McArthur towards winger Zaha caused Friend all sorts of problems, with the winger buzzing around him and behind him, and his poor touch allowed Zaha to nip in and sweep the ball past Valdez from 10 yards out. Back came Brower though, and Downing saw an absolute pile driver miss the target by fractions as he wrecked the ball goalwards from 25 yards out, and then Ben Gibson copied the former England winger but from 10 yards further back, and this time Mandanda had to leap to his top corner to get his fingertips to the Rapsin effort. Looking for the third goal that would seal victory, Palace nearly got it when a Jason punching caller found Dan, whose header came to Jamie Delaney, but he could only steer it wide from the byline. But with 14 minutes to go, Ayala nearly scored again from a corner kick, but this time his attempt flushed over. With 6 minutes to go, Pardew handed debuts to Matthew Flamini and Jonathan Benteke, who replaced his brother. But there was no late drama as Downing played a perfect pass into Gaston Ramirez, who saw a drilled shot brilliantly saved by Mandanda, with Martin Kelly managing to pip Negredo to a loose ball in front of an empty net to ensure Palace seized the first league win on the road since last December. So now you've heard the match report, I'm now going to give you some positives and negatives as well as 5 things we've learned from the game. Defensive grit. A clinical Christian Benteke header and an impeccable goal-scoring Wilfried Zaha performance secured Crystal Palace's first Premier League win of 2016 at Middlesbrough on Saturday. Despite taking the lead twice, Palace faced significant pressure throughout the match, and Borough fans may feel slightly aggrieved that they didn't create and score more. But Palace's resilience shone through in their 2-1 win. Now for some positives from the game. Palace's long-suffering travelling support finally got to celebrate an away win, thanks to the side's stellar performances throughout the side. Alan Pardew's side spent much of the season whittling under immense pressure, but this performance signalled a change in fortunes in defence as well as attack. Now for some negatives from the game. The defensive retreat and the reliance on the counter-attack as the game progressed was concerning. Pardew laminated in his post-match news conference, claiming it wasn't part of his game plan, which suggests there still needs to be work done to changing the squad's mindset. Now to move on to 5 things we've learned from the game. Number 1. Do Palace really need to play a 4-4-2? They were back to their normal 4-2-3-1 formation and looked solid and able to break forward in numbers. It may add pressure to the front man in Christian Benteke, but as long as the midfield are creating, who is complaining? We'll stick to it for now. Number 2, Wilfried Zaha. Wilfried Zaha does have end product. Well, we all knew that anyway, but there has been some questions about it in the recent past. A goal and an assist today, and much improved performance. Number 3, Palace need to get their foot on the gas. At 1-0 they let Borough get back into it, and when they went 2-1 ahead, they didn't quite keep the pressure on. With the quality that Palace have going forward, we should really be capable of doing that. Number 4, Andros Townsend really is yet to get going for Palace. The winger looks good in bursts, but then goes missing. Needs to take players on more and get more crosses into the box. A goal would help too. Number 5, Damien Delaney should not be getting beaten in the air that easily. Daniel Arler twice got above him with ease at the Riverside. One contributed to the goal and the other went narrowly over the bar from the header. So now you've heard the match review, we're now going to move on to the player rankings. But before we start with that, don't forget to follow us across social media on Twitter and Facebook at @THIS for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check up our Facebook group so you can join in with discussions, read the latest news and also post your own opinion. But like I said there, if you do want to get in contact with us, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, obviously you can comment below the video. But if you do want to contact us via social media, do tweet us or contact us on Facebook at @eCrystalPalace so we can hear your opinion, but also so you can read the latest news which we post on our account. And obviously if you are on Facebook, do join the Facebook group as well, because other than the news you have lots of discussion on there, lots of polls, and also you can post your own opinion on there after the game. But enough of that. If you want to follow us. But now to start with the player rankings, and if you do disagree with this is the thing to get in contact with us with. Do you agree with the rankings I give? Do you think they're fair? Do you think they're unfair? Would you give a player a different rating? But, you know, if you do have a different opinion to me, do comment that below the video or on either social media sites so that we can hear your view. But starting in goal with Steve Mondonda, and I'm going to give him an 8. A commanding performance. While Middlesbrough's goal was unavoidable, Mandanda made a number of saves which kept Palace weighted in the game. So obviously Steve Mandanda, he's carrying on his form from the last 2 games he's played for Palace. And what a performance again. Once again, a very commanding performance from him. And yes, Middlesbrough's goal, it was a very good header. He did actually get a fingertip hand. He got a hand to the goal. So he almost saved that one as well. But other than them sort of 2 points being commanding and almost saving Middlesbrough's goal, his overall game was fantastic. He made a number of fantastic saves. One of them, one-on-one with Negredo in the 46th minute. He could have scored and Middlesbrough could have been 2-1 up at half-time. He made another collection of saves. One of them in the second half, about the 80th minute, he made another save, which he cleared off the line, and then Kelly cleared it off the line again. So once again, making crucial saves at parts of the game, periods in the game, where that if we had conceded the goal, it probably would have resulted in us maybe losing the game or drawing the game, because at that point in the game, there probably wasn't enough time to get back into it. But you know what? Like I said there, I think the best way to describe it is his performance kept the game weighted in Palace's favour. And if it wasn't for him, I'm not saying Wayne Hennessy's a bad keeper, but I think some of them saves Hennessy might have not been able to save, because sometimes Hennessy's reflexes are not as good as Mandanda's. And obviously Mandanda's showing us the class he's got by using his reflexes to stretch out, try and get a hand to everything. He's also making himself big, which has resulted in him making a number of fantastic blocks throughout the game. But once again, Steve, he made some fantastic saves during the game and kept the game in Palace's favour. And, you know, he is one of the contenders for the Man of the Match award because it was a fantastic, solid performance from him. And he was unlucky not to get the clean sheet, to be honest, because, like I said, he did get a fingertip save to Middlesbrough's goal. But now to move on to the back line, starting with Joe Ward. I am going to give Joe Ward a 7. This was one of Ward's better performances in the last 6 months. Tackling, passing and even attacking with great sense of urgency and confidence. So Joe Ward's one of the debatable ones, which not quite a lot of people thought he didn't have a good game because he didn't do anything spectacular. But actually, if you look at his game as a whole, this is probably his best performance in a long time. And when I say long time, probably about 6 months, because, you know, he's been playing well the first half of last season, you know, scored the 2 goals, one against Arsenal, one against Chelsea, and we thought this would be a good season for him. And then he sort of petered towards the end of the season. But now, the last few games, he's been building back his confidence and urgency within games, and he's putting in some more solid performances. And certainly, this was one of the better ones in a long time for him. But like I said, the tackling, the passing was fantastic. You know, he was able to get forward on a few occasions. And I said this already, but he showed a lot more urgency in the game. Whereas before, he would panic when in possession and, you know, just pass the ball. This game, he would, you know, try and take the player on, try and get past them, or go all right up to them and then pass it. So he had a lot more confidence in this game, and that resulted in him having a much better performance. And I think he did contribute to the fact that we won the game. His defensive work, i.e. the tackling and passing, kept us in the game because he was able to clear Middlesbrough's chances. You know, when they got the crosses into the box, he was able to block them. You know, he was able to make a few good tackles as well. And when he was going forward, his passing, not only was it good in defence, but when going forward, the passing was superb when going forward. But certainly one of the better performances we've seen from Joe Ward in quite a long time. And hopefully the fact that he had a good performance will help build up his confidence and therefore mean he will get better as the season progresses. But now to move on to the centre-back, Damien Delaney, and I am going to give him a 6. His error in losing his marker, Daniel Arla, resulted in Middlesbrough scoring a goal that they didn't really deserve, and his slow reactions nearly allowed Negredo to score shortly after. However, with Borough pushing for an equaliser late in the game, Delaney's presence helped push Palace for the win. So Damien Delaney didn't have one of his best games for Palace, and I think most fans would say that. You know, we know he's a fan's favourite, but in the last few games he's been a bit sluggish in his play and hasn't really had the best of performances. And whether that will be because of the injury he sustained in the Tottenham game, I don't know. But he hasn't really been playing up to scratch. And, you know, he should have. We know he's very good from corners. He's got a very good head on him. But, you know, when that corner came in from Middlesbrough, he should have really jumped higher than Daniel Arla and cleared the ball away. And obviously in this chance, if you look at the replay, he didn't even jump. So normally he would jump. He's about 6 foot. He would have normally cleared that, headed that away. But in this occasion, he didn't. And that really meant that Middlesbrough scored the goal. And I suppose in a pundit's words, against the run of play. But, you know, once again, we know he's not very fast. And Negredo is very fast. So his slow reactions when Negredo was on the counter-attack did almost result in Middlesbrough going 2-1 up at half-time. But once again, Steve made a fantastic save and covered up for the mistake that Damien Delaney made at the back. But to be honest, give him his due. You know, when we were under pressure, we were 2-1 up, you know, trying to go for the win. Borough were putting players forward, trying to get the equaliser late in the game. But I think his presence, his experience of being under pressure in them sort of situations helped Palace push through the game and eventually get the win. But do you know what? Not the best performance from him, but at least, I suppose, the positive to get from his performance is at least he put in a shift that when we were under pressure, he performed. So obviously, when Middlesbrough scored, he wasn't really under that much pressure and made the mistake. But when he was under pressure, he used his experience very well to make sure he could control the situation very well. But now to move on to his fellow centre-back partner and the captain, Scott Dann. And I am going to give him a 7. Dealt with Middlesbrough's attacking threat, especially in the second half, with confidence and ease. There's a case to be made about handball in the penalty area midway through the first half, but it wasn't intentional and would have been a hard decision. So obviously Scott Dann, the captain, like always, he commanded the side very well and made sure that all the players knew what they were doing. You know, that's very consistent from him. And the one thing we can rely on him for is doing defensive duties. And, you know, like all the players, most of the players in this game, he put in a very good, solid performance. And I think that resulted in him, you know, having a very good game indeed. But, you know, he dealt with Middlesbrough's attacking threat, you know, by just playing simple football, by just making a simple tackle, by making a simple pass, a simple block. He kept the game very simple and didn't try to do tricks and everything, and he done that with confidence and ease. And obviously, there is a case for the handball in the penalty area, but if you really look back at the replay, Middlesbrough had the ball on the left-hand side, blasted it across the face of goal. Dan put his leg out to block it from going to the player, and it bounced off his knee onto his shoulder. And I do say the shoulder because if you look at the replay, it was the shoulder. And even if it did hit his hand, and even if my opinion's wrong, if you look back at it, it's not intentional. You know, he's put his foot up into the air to make the block, and obviously he's put his hand up to keep his balance. So you can't really blame him for that. And it would have been very harsh to give it. And like I said, it wasn't intentional, so there's no point going on about it. But, you know, similar to Ward, he had a very, very good game. His tackling was superb, you know, keeping us in the game. And also his headering as well. He almost scored. I think he almost scored. I can't recall exactly. But, you know, he used his head or his headering abilities throughout the game, whether it be defending corners or whether it be attacking from a corner as well. But, you know, once again, tackling, passing, and even getting attacking, you know, sometimes there's a bit of space in front of him. He'll go, you know, run forward a bit, try and make a few yards space, and then find the pass. So he done that very well. And he did assist the assister for Zaha's goal. He got the ball, once again, from defence, moved forward, passed it to James McArthur, who then found a lovely through ball to Wilfried Zaha to score. So if you do give points for pre-assisters, then Scott Dan gets points for the pre-assist in that. But once again, a solid performance from the captain and a very commanding one at that. Now to move on to the fullback and the final player of the back line, and that is Martin Kelly, and I am going to give him a 7. He's a player that doesn't get into the game, doesn't get much game time that he really deserves, but he showed Pardew just why he's worthy of greater consideration when choosing the lineup. His most significant contribution was a goal line clearance late in the match, which undoubtedly saved Palace the win. So obviously Martin Kelly, similar to Ward and Dan, had a very good game, very solid at the back. And to be honest, now that Papa Suarez is injured, you know, this is an opportunity for Martin Kelly to get into the side. And to be honest, he put in a solid performance and he showed Pardew why he should be in the lineup. You know, he should really be getting more game time because he's a very good defender, and this performance showed why. And I think that now, considering he's now had a few games and he's played, he should have Pardew should put greater consideration into actually putting him in the lineup, because he's a player that when called upon he can put in a shift. So hopefully if we put him in the lineup just for the few weeks or months that Suarez out injured, hopefully he can cover that up well. But similar to all of the defenders really, you know, he played simple football, made some lovely tackles, passing, you know, just passing it around the area. And his crosses were superb as well from him as well. You know, that's one thing that he has over Ward, in the fact that he has better crossing abilities. So Ward, sometimes his crosses are a bit aimless, but Martin Kelly hits them on his left foot, and then very nice curling balls into the area. So he's done that on a few occasions. And obviously where he was linking up with Zaha and Townsend on the left or right hand sides, he'd done that with ease as well, and that helped us to give a greater sense of attacking threat when we were going forward. But the one thing to highlight about his game was the goal line clearance he made late in the game, which kept got Palace to win really, and stopped it from going for 2-2. Obviously, Middlesbrough whipped the ball in the area. I can't remember who got his head on it, but someone got his head on it. Steve made the initial save. Negredo went to hit it, and Kelly made himself big and made another goal line clearance. So a lovely connection there between the goalkeeper and Steve, and also Martin Kelly, to combine together to make two fantastic, crucial goal line clearances, which undoubtedly did save Palace the win. And, you know, overall, a good performance from Martin Kelly. Hopefully he gets consideration to get into the first lineup now. And if he does do the simple stuff, which we want off a defender, just the tackling and also the passing, if he does that consistently, he'll definitely get a spot in the team. But now to move on to the midfield. And we normally would play the 4-2-3-1 formation, but in this game we went for a different approach, which we done in the second half against Middlesbrough. And actually, I think that helped us very well. And obviously, I'm going to start with Jason Punchin, and it was sort of a midfield three, a 4-3-3 type formation with, with Jason Punchin playing quite forward, with James McArthur, with Joe Ledley just playing back, just doing the defensive work. And I think this formation worked quite well, actually. So with this new sort of 4-3-3 approach, Palace were able to change their sort of game as such, and this meant that the defence would give them more support by the midfield, obviously mainly being Joe Ledley, who was playing in that defensive role, but it also meant that the three midfield players were able to support more and give better service to the wingers and the strikers so we could attack more. And I think this formation worked pretty well, because like I said, it was giving more support to all the players, so that they were able to get forward more and eventually get something from the game. And I think that worked very well. But obviously, I think Jason Puncheon was quite crucial, quite a key player in this sort of setup. But obviously, I am going to give him a 7. A strong performance as part of Palace's central midfield. Puncheon showed a rarely seen treacherous edge that included making well-timed tackles and harrying of opponents. A few misplaced passes may have been avoidable, but there's a sense that he's finally returning to the form that made him an England call-up contender. So obviously, like I said there, the actual formation meant that we had a more strong performance because the midfield gave the strikers more support and the wingers more support, and also gave the defence more cover and things like that. And I think he was quite key to this, and obviously we've seen quite an attacking threat and an edge from Puncheon in this game because, you know, with this formation, he had the ability to go forward more if he needed to give support, but also he would give cover to the defence by going back and making the tackles. And some of them were fantastic, well-timed tackles, and he was harrying off opponents, obviously putting on a lot of pressure, making sure that they would give away possession. And yes, he gave away possession a few times, and yes, debatably one of them almost led to Middlesbrough scoring. Throughout the game, he actually, by hurrying up the defenders, it meant that they lost the ball and he was able to claim possession of them. And obviously, like I said, a few misplaced passes and a few misplaced touches and things like that could have been avoidable. You know, he could have had better control and maybe took a second to think about it and then passed the ball out. But to be honest, as an overall performance, he's sort of been up and down over the last few months. But this game, you know, we saw a sense of what he was like before a few seasons ago when he was capable of an England call-up. And I still think he could be called up to England because I think his experience could help England. Not that I'm saying he should go to England, not that he just doesn't deserve it, but I don't know whether he's up to that quality with the likes of Dele Alli in the team now. But I still think that what he was like before a few seasons ago when he was a contender for an England call-up, he's certainly getting back to that level again where he's playing in that sort of central role. He's supplying both the strikers, the wingers, as well as just, you know, helping the whole team around him. And I think he was possibly, I suppose he was one of the best attacking threats, because if it weren't for him and his sort of control and creativity in the centre of the park, we wouldn't have been able to go forward and go on the counter-attacks, because it sort of all of the ball came through him, because he was the one passing it out wide. He was the one finding the space. He was the one creating the chances. He was the one supplying the midfield. So I think he was quite key and crucial to the way that Palace set up. But certainly, I think a word to describe it is just a strong performance overall. He done everything you needed him to do. Tackles, passing, finding space, putting crosses in. And I think, to be honest, we haven't seen this. It's a rare performance for him because we haven't seen this quality in a very long time. But certainly, he's getting back to quality which could see him get called up for the England squad. But now to move on to the second player in the sort of free midfielder formation, and that was Joe Ledley, who played in the more defensive role, and I am going to give him a 7. Returning from international duty without any injury concerns meant the Welshman had a sharpness that had been lacking in previous weeks. He dealt with some of the more physical aspects of the game and rotated into an attacking role when needed to. Another dependable performance. So Joe Ledley, we thought that, you know, with him coming back from international break, he might not be up to match fitness, and he probably, where he's been carrying an injury the last few weeks and months, we thought he may not be able to cope with the pressure. But actually, I think the international break actually helped him because it meant he was playing, you know, with some of world-class players in Bale. He meant that he got up to match fitness eventually. So when he came back to Palace, he was sharp. And I think the fact that he didn't have the training during that week, he actually was playing, I think that helped his match sharpness, because at the end of the day, football players, yes, they have to train to get better, but at the end of the day, they want to be playing matches. And I think that really helped him, that rather than doing training with Wales or with Palace during the international break, he actually went out, played a game, done solid for Wales, and I think that resulted in him, you know, being more sharp, that when he came back for Palace, he was a lot better. And I think the fact that it's a week later also helps. You know, he was lacking a bit of sharpness when a few weeks ago when he was playing. But this game, you know, he's up to match fitness sharpness now, let's call it. And I think that resulted in him having a very good game. And he did deal with the physical aspects of the game. So some of the big players running at them on the counter-attack from Middlesbrough, he dealt with them very well, whether it would be, you know, trying to dispossess them, trying to scare them with his beard, let's say. Also, he just made himself big. It's the same with goalkeepers. When someone's coming running at you, you want to make yourself big, so they would either have to find a pass or try and get around you. And he'd done that with ease. You know, a player would try and go around him, he'd put in a tackle, he'd try and get the ball off of them. And when he did get the ball off of them, he was able to get the ball, and instead of just chipping it away and panicking under the pressure, he stayed composed and was able to then go into the attacking role when he was needed to and get the ball forward and support, once again, this three-player formation, support the attackers. And he done it very well. But I think the main thing to credit him for is he done a very solid defensive job, you know, doing the tackles, finding passes, finding space, all of that. And when he had to get forward, he'd done that with ease. And I think it's a dependable performance. I think that's a good way to describe his performance, a very dependable one. But I think a very good performance from him, and I think I can see his future in the squad being a more defensive player, because for Wales he plays sort of that defensive/attacking role, like changing throughout the game. And I think that can really add something to the Palace team, because we need a player who can adapt and actually play both attacking and defensively. And I think we've got a player here in Ledley who can do that. But hopefully in the next few weeks he'll finish off and get to his sharpest he can be for match fitness, and hopefully that will help him to get into the squad. But if he keeps doing the defensive work and the simple attacking work that he does, I'm sure he will stay in the Palace squad. But now to move into the final person in the three-player midfield, and that is James McArthur, and I am going to give him an 8. Does the dirty work in Palace's midfield in such a way that he manages to make it look graceful. His technicacy in defence was matched by his creativity in attack, creating Palace's second goal with a deft pass behind George Friend for Zaha to latch onto. So once again, James McArthur, who normally play in a defensive role, and we know he can do that very well. But in the last few games, where we were playing this three-men formation, and once again I mention it because it was crucial to the game, I think, the game plan. You know, this meant that he would be able to get forward more because he was not set a role in the midfield, whether it be attacking or defensively. So he had that sort of option to go forward, and he'd done that very well. You know, he was able to chase down players, get the ball off of them, find passes, and you know, with all of the midfielders, he was able to supply the strikers and wingers, which crucially meant that we were creating as many chances as possible. And I think a way to describe his performance is that he does the dirty work. He's always chasing down players, trying to make blocks. He does, when he is in possession, he doesn't panic, holds onto the ball, does twists and turns. And I think ultimately that helped us in the game, because not all players want to do that. They just want to, you know, receive the ball and try and have a shot on goal. But McArthur, he will happily assist people, obviously assisting Zaha, but, you know, he would happily get the ball, do a lovely hold-up play, and wait for someone else to do it. And to be honest, he made it look graceful. Although he's not doing the very fun job in the fact that he's trying to get forward, he was just, you know, chasing down players, making sure they lose possession. He done it with ease and made it look very graceful indeed. But, you know, when he was going forward, he has lovely creativity about him, whether that be his ability to find a pass, to make space up, or just the fact that he was able just to make these twists and turns, to make space, to get forward. And I think that ultimately helped him to do well in the game. And obviously he did create Palace's second goal. A lovely through ball from Dan. He was able to control it very well, and then eventually put the pass behind George Friend, and then Zaha was able to latch onto it. So another assist for James McArthur. Hopefully I can see him more in an attacking role in his formation, because judging by this performance, yes, he put in tackles and done a defensive work and headering and all of that stuff you want from a defender. When he was going forward, he was fantastic. He was chasing down the players, you know, putting in crosses. And ultimately, I think if we can play in this formation, or if we play and stick with this formation, I'm sure he'll be key to this role, because just his overall work rate was fantastic. And I suppose the stat to tell you about is that he ran more than any other player on the field. And I believe it was about 11.9, let's say, kilometres he ran through the whole game. So, you know, when you look at that stat, you think that's amazing. And that's from all the work he was doing, all of that dirty work by, you know, chasing down the players. All of that resulted in him running that far in the game. And I think we saw that, the result of that in the game, because that meant that you know, we were able to get forward because of the fact that he was making defenders lose the ball. But all in all, a fantastic performance from James McArthur, and hopefully he can carry on this performances in the future. But now to move on to the front three, and obviously 2 being wingers and 1 of them being the striker. And this is the first 9 I've ever given on the podcast, both for Crystal Palace and obviously for my old podcast as well, at the CPC podcast. So, and I am going to give the 9 to Wilfried Zaha, because he just had an absolutely fantastic performance. And he is one of the contenders for the Man of the Match award because he just had a fantastic performance overall. But to start off with him, the winger was subject to immense speculation as the transfer window closed, and his performance proved just why the Palace chairman Steve Parish was so intent to hold on to him. Zaha made the interactive look simple, running with pace, skill and power that bamboozled his opponents. His cross in the first half of Benteke was perfectly weighted, and his goal in the second was ruthlessly efficient. So obviously Wilfried Zaha, the first 9 I've ever given on the podcast, and well deserved in my opinion. And yes, there's been lots of speculation about him going to Tottenham. And I've said this in past podcasts, I don't see why he would want to move to Tottenham, other than the fact he would get more money, because he wouldn't get game time at Tottenham, I can assure you of that, because the likes of Dele Alli will probably get into the squad ahead of him, because Dele Alli is very versatile, can play in the centre as well as out wide. And I don't think Zaha would have got anywhere in that team. And yes, he was part of the Palace's plans anyway, and he wasn't for sale. But the fact is, why would you go get rid of a player when he puts in solid performances like this? And, you know, yes, Zaha was sort of, his head was changed and turned from the Tottenham deal. But, you know, Parish said to him, no, you're staying here. And look what he's done. He's put in a very solid performance. And just his whole game he made it look simple, but it was fantastic. Obviously, he was running down the wing with lots of pace, using his skill, his trickery to get past players. And also just his power as well. You know, I've heard a few people saying on Twitter that over the holidays, over the summer, he's been working in the gym. And we've seen that, you know, his hold-up plays getting better. He's able to push off defenders now so he can get past them. And ultimately, that led to him being a total menace, let's say, a total threat in the game. And his cross in the first half, it was just, I still can't believe it. It was fantastic. Obviously, Bournemouth, I keep saying that. Borough gave away a cheap throw-in the edge of the area. So, you know, Ward passed it to Zaha. Zaha with a lovely cross on his right foot, lovely curl onto the head of Benteke. And just an alright, fantastic goal. And obviously, it was perfectly weighted. Lovely curl on it. And ultimately, that led to it falling right onto the head of Christian Benteke to score the goal. And his goal, that was fantastic as well. A lovely assist there from MacArthur once again. All of the players linking up very well. Obviously, Dan finding MacArthur, who found Zaha. And to be honest, he stayed composed. When he saw the goalkeeper coming out, he thought, I'll bend this around the keeper. So he put a lovely curl into it, into the top left-hand corner. Fantastic goal there, lovely sort of skill, and ultimately that was what he deserved from the game, because before that goal, he was the best player undoubtedly on the field. He was being the menace. He was the most attacking person on the pitch, the best attacking threat. And I'm happy for him to get the goal, because when you put in a performance like that, you would like to get something from it. And he done exactly that, you know. He put in the performance and he got something from it in a goal. And hopefully there's more of that to come from him, because we've seen, you know, he can score goals, and hopefully if he gets the opportunity to get forward more, to get past players, to get behind players, and just use his pace, skill and power, I'm sure that he will score a lot more goals. And with him being supplied more by the midfielders, obviously Zaha with Punchin and MacArthur supplying him, I'm sure that he can score a lot more goals. But certainly he's one of the hot contenders for the Man of the Match award, because it was just a fantastic performance. Even though his head was turned by transfer speculation, he still went out there composed and put in an absolutely solid performance. But just everything was so simple that he done, but it was fantastic. The pace, skill and power was absolutely ruthless from him. But now to move on to the striker in the middle of the field, and that is Christian Benteke, and I am going to give him a 7. More should be made of the Belgium striker's opening goal. His movement and reading of the situation was outstanding, and the header was followed was clinical. It was a real indicator of the quality that the player has, so long as the service to him is still in there. And I think a key thing, I suppose, to highlight about his performance, or about that sort of statement about him, was the fact that the service into him needs to be good. And we've done that, we've seen him. That's why we brought him to the club, because we know that if we can get crosses into him, he will score goals. And we've seen that at Aston Villa, at Liverpool. They crossed the ball into him, he used his head and scored loads of goals. And that was the key in our game, to get the ball up to Benteke so he could header it in. And once again, a lovely cross from Wilfried Zaha. But other than the cross, the way the cross was, the weight of the cross, it was just fantastic movement and the reading of the situation for him. You know, the ball was coming into the area. He saw it there. He thought, I need to get my height. So he got ready to jump. He got the power in his back legs to jump high and get that. He moved into the right space by using his fantastic movement and awareness skills. And also he just read the situation. He saw how high it was going. So he knew what part of the head he had to hit it in to get it under. He had to think of the power to get it under the crossbar. And all of that reading of the situation was outstanding, and the header was just, you know, a result of all of the things he'd done to the build-up, obviously the movement and the reading of the situation. If he hadn't have done them, you know, he may have hit it over the bar, or it would have had too much power on it. But because he used his skill to make sure it was perfect, the header was just absolutely clinical, and it is a real indicator of what there is to come from him. If we keep supplying him with lovely crosses, which Zaha put into him, I'm sure that he can score a lot more goals into there. And it's just a player at Palace of this quality is fantastic. And I've heard people say this on Twitter. This is probably the best Palace squad we've had in the history of the club. And I think Benteke is a key integral part of that, because if we can supply him, if we can give him the opportunity which Liverpool didn't give him, I'm sure that he can become a real club great if he can get into his scoring boots, which he did at Aston Villa. But certainly, opening goal for Christian Benteke, and hopefully there's more to come from him in the following games in the season. But once again, a very clinical game from him. Now to move on to the other winger in the front three, and that's the final player of the front three, obviously, and that is Andros Townsend, and I am going to give him a 7. The winger is gradually beginning to find his feet and his shooting boots at the club following his summer arrival. So Townsend had quite a quiet game, and yes, he had some key moments in the game where he was able to get forward. He had a shot on goal that was just saved by the keeper, but other than that, he had a very quiet game, and you know, he's slowly getting into the gist of playing for Palace. And I think word to describe it is just gradually fitting into the team, and he's starting to find his feet. You know, he's able to run down the flanks now, get the crosses in, and he's starting to fit into the role perfectly. And same as Zaha, we know that in order for Benteke to score goals, we need to cross the ball into him, and that's what Townsend done. Townsend used his shooting boots to get a lovely cross into the area, and yes, none of them actually got to anything. You know, some of them were headed wide, but the fact that he was able to create the crosses, to put these pinpoint lovely crosses into the air, was fantastic. And obviously, we all thought that in the summer that he would get into the role straight away, and he did sort of fit into the role straight away after coming into the summer. But I think this game was a real indicator of him slowly, gradually fitted into the squad, because this was a very, not the best performance from him, because we've seen what he's done at Newcastle, the fact that he could run at defenders really well, get the crosses into the area. It wasn't his best performance, but he showed us what there is to come from him, obviously, because we saw the fact that he was able to take on players, he was able to get past them and cut inside, the fact that he was able to have a shot from 20 yards, the fact that he was able to get crosses in. Everything about his game was fantastic. It's just we need to see a goal from him now. And I think as soon as he score a goal, whether it be in the Cup, whether it be in the league, I think that will really kick on his season, and hopefully have a run of games where he's on top form, you know, and scores a few goals every week. And, you know, hopefully more can come from him, but not the best performance from him. But I did give him a 7 because he done what was wanted of him. He done more in some respects because of his crosses, and actually he took a few of the free kicks. They were fantastic deliveries right into the area. They went straight onto the head of the player that he wanted them to do. He took a few of the corners, you know, lovely movement in the box from the likes of Dan. But once again, lovely deliveries, pinpoint deliveries from both Punch and Townsend to, you know, to try and create opportunities, and that's what he done very well. And I think if Townsend and Punching can keep delivering these sort of pinpoint accuracy free kicks, I'm sure that eventually something will come from them, and we'll start to finally see some end product and more quality from Andros Townsend. But now to move on to the 3 substitutions. I'm not going to give ratings to them because they were hardly on the pitch long enough to actually get a rating. Well, obviously, Lee Chung-yong, Jonathan Benteke and Matthew Flamini. So starting with Lee Chung-yong, brought on for Townsend with the introduction to provide defensive cover, did what was asked for him. Jonathan Benteke, on with 5 minutes remaining for his big brother, had a soft shot on target. Matthew Flamini subbed on for Joe Ledley and provided defensive cover to see out the remaining minutes. So 2 of these players were just on the pitch to give defensive cover, and Lee Chung-yong, Flamini done that very well, whether it would be making tackles, just making simple blocks, and also when the ball was in the area, just clearing it so that in the final few minutes we wouldn't have, you know, been under pressure of Middlesbrough scoring, because we were able to clear the ball very well. And we've seen that, yes, Matthew Flamini hasn't really played in a few months, but he showed how fit he is. He used his match fitness was almost perfect, and he done a very good role as well. And Lee Chung-yong, you know, he done a defensive role. His fitness was fantastic as well. Didn't really have the massive impact on the game. But I think the only reason he was brought into the game was just to be that sort of cover in the midfield, just to make sure the fitness was okay. And obviously the final substitution, the family and Jonathan Benteke were brought on at the same time. But obviously Jonathan Benteke came on for his brother. He didn't really, 5 minutes remaining. You can't really have that much of an impact on the game. But it was nice to see what there is to expect from him. And he's got a lovely little bit of pace. He's very good at chasing down goalkeepers. So he's got that sort of awareness and that skill to run at them. And his shooting isn't really that hard. And I don't know whether that's just because the one chance he had to shoot on goal, he just took it lamely because there was a defender running at him. But hopefully he can develop his shooting boots so that it become more powerful. But certainly, there's aspects of his game that we saw in that little 5-minute clip of him on the field that show us why he was brought to the club. Because he's got a lot of potential from what I've seen. Whether that will be him playing on the wing, using his pace and crossing ability, whether that will be him playing up front and being someone who you cross the ball into and he can hit a powerful one with his foot. But certainly, I think there's more to come from him. But from all the team and the substitutions as well, they had a fantastic game. Everyone had a fantastic game. Everyone was doing what was expected of them, whether it be defensive work, attacking work, or whether it just be supplying and controlling the game. All of the players done what was expected of them. And obviously, ultimately, that led to us getting our first win of the season. Now to move on to the man of the match award, but before I do that and give you my man of the match and who I thought had the biggest influence on the game, I'm now going to give the results of my Twitter poll. And if you didn't know, the Twitter poll isn't run by Crystal Palace, it's actually run by my own personal account at the CPC podcast. And I go on Twitter, do some weekly polls for the man of the match award, as well as posting some news articles on there every day. So if you are on Twitter, do give it a follow, so you also get the opportunity to vote in the polls. But the 4 nominations for the man of the match this week were Steve Mandanda, James McArthur, Wilfried Zaha and Christian Benteke. So starting in last place with 8% of the votes was Christian Benteke. In third place with 12% of the votes was James McArthur. In second place and runner-up of this week's man of the match award with 28% of the votes was Steve Mandanda, which means the winner of the man of the match award for the game against Middlesbrough with 52% of the votes is Wilfried Zaha. So congratulations, Wilfried. You don't get a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was a very solid attacking performance from you. But before I do that and give you... But yeah, they were the results on my Twitter poll. Before I do give you my own personal man of the match, I'm just going to go through the shortlist and just explain to you the reasons why I put these on the list and why I personally thought that they should have been candidates for the man of the match award. Starting with Steve Mandanda. The last few games, he's had solid games. He's been making save after save. He's been making catches. His distribution has been superb. And once again, in the Middlesbrough game, he carried that form on. And once again, was making crucial blocks throughout the game. Also, distribution was very good, sorry. And, ultimately, that's why I think we won the game. The fact that he made these saves to keep us in the games at certain points, as well as making catches so he could do the fast distribution to start to our counter-attacks. And all in all, I just think the way he commanded and composed himself meant that we had a good game. But, if it weren't for him, we probably would have conceded a few goals because them crucial saves kept us in the game. And for that reason alone, I put him on the shortlist. Obviously, James McArthur normally plays in a more defensive role, but this game he had the opportunity to go forward and play a sort of high-press game, and he done that very well. He was tormenting the... tormenting the defences of Borough, just by running at them constantly, blocking their passes, making sure they had to pass back to the keeper. He was applying that pressure on a lot throughout the game, and ultimately that led to us being able to attack more, because someone like that meant that the players would lose possession, and that meant in the opportunity arose to a player, they were able to go forward and have a shot on goal, and that resulted in Wilfried Zaha scoring the goal, to be honest, because James McArthur applying pressure to the players, so he lost possession, so Wilfried Zaha picked up the ball and scored from that. So, to be honest, James McArthur, playing an attacking role, he'd done that with ease. He was superb, running forward, finding passes, but all in all, I think, as a whole performance for him, it was just the fact that the pressure he put on the defenders. Obviously, moving on to the winner of the Twitter poll, Wilfried Zaha, I don't know what else there is to say for him, because he scored a goal and he assisted a goal. That's got to be what you would expect of a player of his calibre. If a player scores a goal and assists a goal, you would normally think they would win the Twitter poll, and in this case, he did, and I think I'll go on to say who I thought it was, but I'm definitely say now that he was one of the contenders. And the reason was he was just, other than scoring the goal and getting the assist, which was a superb cross, by the way, he just had a fantastic attacking game overall. And, you know, he was the best attacking threat throughout the game. He was, like MacArthur, running at defenders, making them lose possession. He was getting crosses into the air, running down the flanks. And he was just doing everything you expected off of him. And obviously getting the goal was a bonus because that meant that we won the game. And also getting the assist was superb cross. And we all knew that when Benteke came to the club, we had to cross balls into him in order for him to score. And Zaha, sublime cross into the area. Benteke scored. So obviously, it's the system we've got at the moment is working very well. But, you know, a good attacking performance from Zaha. And the final thing for him was he made a crucial last-ditch tackle in the second half, I think it was about the 88th minute, let's say. You know, Borough, they were on the counter-attack, about to get the ball, cross it across the face of goal, and ultimately, maybe someone like Negredo was there to hit it in. But, you know, Wilfried Zaha stayed composed, went back and defended, made a tackle and got booked for it, which is slightly harsh tackle, really, so you can accept that being a foul. But if he hadn't have done that, they would have been able to run through and probably score from that. So that tackle ultimately stopped Borough from scoring because it meant that when the free kick came into the area, from the edge of the area, we were able to clear it and obviously win the game. But I think to just talk about the tackle, it was perfectly timed because Zaha knew that he was outside the box, so he made the tackle there, got booked, but took one for the team because it meant that we didn't lose the game by conceding a late goal. And obviously moving on to the final player on the shortlist, Christian Benteke. What is there to say about him? Same as Zaha. He scored the goal. Fantastic goal. Obviously his spatial awareness when the cross came in was fantastic. He was able to run into the space to get his head on it, and also just his sheer jumping ability as well. He was able to get the height on so he could get his head onto the ball, and obviously a fantastic header right in the top bins of the goal. But other than that, other than the goal, he had a fantastic attacking game, whether it be holding up the ball, whether it be linking up with the midfield, the wingers. Everything attacking about his game was fantastic. And other than the headering, his hold-up play, everything like that was fantastic. And that's why I put him on the shortlist. He was a terror, such as Wilfried Zaha, just terrorising the defence. And I think his height helped as well. You know, that meant he was able to get forward, get his head on the balls on a few occasions, and ultimately try and create a few chances throughout the game. But obviously, that was sort of just a summary of why I put them in my Twitter poll and why I nominated these 4 people. But you want to hear who I thought man of the match was, and I think it's pretty clear, judging by what I've said, if you haven't guessed already. But I am going to give it to Wilfried Zaha, so congratulations. You are the double winner of the man of the match award against the game against Middlesbrough. But you know what? It was just an all-in-all, a fantastic performance from Zaha. His cross was superb, his goal was superb, and also just his attacking game and sense was fantastic as well. And not to forget that last-ditch tackle. You know, I've already mentioned everything, but seriously, if it weren't for that tackle, we probably would have ended up drawing that game. So that crucial block, as well as just his attacking attributes, were fantastic, and that's why he's won this week's Man of the Match award. But now you've heard the match report, player rankings, and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got some exclusive interviews with Alan Pardew, Wilfried Zaha, Christian Benteke, and James MacArthur after the game.
Alan, 3 points and a really hard-working performance from your team today.
Yeah, just a touch. Great to see our fans up here. It was a hard journey to get here. I know that because I worked up here. First 20 minutes of each half was the vision I have for the team. Passed it really well, controlled the game. But of course we lacked confidence a little bit with that win, so we got the lead and sat back. And the second half of the first half was difficult. They equalised, which we should have prevented. And we went again, second half. We did exactly the same as we did in the first. Brilliant for 20 minutes. Got the goal, got the lead, and again, just that lack of confidence to stay on it, stay on the game. And we sat a little bit deep and had to weather a storm at the end, which we shouldn't have done, really. Having said that, real qualities in that to see it through. I thought the goalie was terrific, and he looked really strong today.
Yeah, you mentioned the possession, but also the pressing as well. Is that very much part of the plan?
Of course, and you know, Maka and Punch today, and then number 8 roles did a really fantastic job of keeping the pressure on Middlesbrough. You have to understand that this is a victory that is not going to get a lot of attention, but Middlesbrough are a good side. They're not like a promoted team. They've won 1, drawn 2, and everything we see about them suggests that they have got no problem this year. That's a good Premier League team there that we've beaten. So a big lift for us.
A goal and assist from Wilfried Zaha as well.
Yeah, important. Our fans needed to see his reaction. Spoke to him about that. The chairman made his statement very, very clear that he was going to remain a Crystal Palace player. Good. Come on then. Let's push on. And I have to say, his attitude and his application has been 10 out of 10 since the moment he found out that he wouldn't be leaving, and you have to pay credit to that.
And finally, next up, Stoke. You're going to have a few players back from injury for that one?
Yep, they're all going to come in on Sunday this weekend. We're going to work them and make sure that we've got everybody available that we can have for next week, because the bench today was thin. But it's nice to see Luke Dyer on there. This is a player that we have high hopes for, and our fans need to keep an eye on him. He's a real contender for this team.
Thank you, Alan.
Cheers.
Good week. Cheers. Well, congratulations. Winning goal today. It was a hard work, wasn't it?
Yeah. Every game's hard work, really, but today, obviously, we haven't won in a while, so we had to put it in, and I'm buzzing we won today.
And an assist as well. What's Christian Benteke been like to provide for?
Literally put any ball in the air, he'll header it, so I see him pull off, so I thought, let me try to get it to him, and I knew he'd get on the end of it, so yeah, I'm buzzing. And
after your goal today, run over to the Palace fans. How good have they been this year?
There's no words for how they are. Like, home or away, they support everywhere we go, and obviously we're going through a rough patch, but they still stood by us, so thankful for them.
The manager talked about changing the way we played. Do you feel like we've moved towards that today with the performance?
Definitely. I feel like we pass the ball more. It's not just in the air constantly, so it gives us wingers a chance to get on the ball and do what we do. So I'm enjoying how we play more now.
And looking ahead to Stoke next weekend, I think we'll be a lot more confident.
Yeah, obviously winning the game, we'll go into the next game more confident, and obviously we'll try to play the way we play and try and get a win again.
Cool. Thanks very much, Wilf. Enjoy the week.
Thanks.
Christian, congratulations. First goal for the club. You happy with the performance today?
Yeah, I will say yeah, because this afternoon was a really solid performance from the lads. We worked really hard to get those 3 points.
And Wilfried Zaha gave the assist for your goal. Great cross in and scored the goal himself. He had a great game, didn't he?
Yeah, the great game. That's why before the end of the transfer windows, I told the manager we have to keep him, because it's going to be a massive boost for us and for himself, because he did really well this afternoon.
And your role in the team, obviously you scored the goal today, but when Middlesbrough had a lot of possession in the second half there, a lot of your job was keeping the ball. Is that one of your strengths as a hold-up player?
Yeah, it's one of my strengths, try to hold the ball and try to set for the midfielder. And yeah, I try to do my best this afternoon, but I'm looking really forward for this season.
And then when you came off, lovely moment, your younger brother coming on as substitute. Proud of him making his Premier League debut?
Yeah, I'm really proud of him, because he worked really hard, and yeah, he's been training really well. It's not because it's my brother, but the manager and the player can tell the same. So yeah, it's a good for him. He had a few minutes on the pitch, and I'm sure he enjoyed.
Thank you very much, Christian. No problem. James, congratulations on the victory today. Much hard work was that?
Yeah, it was very. Towards the end, we were clinging on, but that's what it takes in this league. Great resilience, but the first half was very, very good. We played a lot of great football. Christian, you see the threat he's got in the box, so very happy with the performance, and obviously delighted with the win.
And Wilfried Zaha as well, goal and an assist for him.
Yeah, he was excellent. He was a threat all the way throughout the game. But not only that, going back, you see the challenge he makes. It's close to a penalty, but if he didn't get there in time, then it's definitely a penalty, or the through 1-on-1 with the keeper. So he's hard work off the ball as well.
Would you say it was a great team performance today, especially in that last 20 minutes?
Yeah, I think it had everything. We passed the ball at times really well. We mixed it up, playing up to Christian, and obviously resilience to hold on and make sure they don't score another one. So yeah, pretty good performance. It
looked like there's quite a lot of high pressing going on, especially from you. Do you think that's going to be the way forward now for this team?
Well, the manager wants that. me and Jason were trying to press as much as we possibly could. You know, at times you're going to need to sit in and make it hard for teams, but a lot of the game we were on the front foot and it was really enjoyable.
And finally, how are you feeling fitness-wise? So obviously you had that injury in pre-season, but
yeah, getting there today at the end, I was very tired a few times, just kicking the ball away because I was that knackered. But that's what it takes, and I'll get my fitness pretty fast.
Thanks.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Alan Pardew, Wilfried Zaha, Christian Benteke and James MacArthur had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Middlesbrough. But make sure to come back next week for my post-match review of the game against Stoke. So thanks for listening and remember to up the Palace.